So, welcome to the Live Football Podcast. I'm Josh, and this is a new channel bringing you all things to do with football, whether it's the Premier League, Championship, Champions League, any European football. We're a group of four lads, and plus one more who will join us. I'm Josh. We've got Sam, Connor, and Ryan, and we're very happy to welcome you to our first podcast. And so, we'd like to get started with the main news that's happened overnight, which is Liverpool putting a bid in of £37 million to Southampton's Romeo Lavia, which has been instantly rejected. Connor, what are your thoughts on this?
I feel like it's a decent bid for what the type of player they're after. Like, it's a very much a replacement for Jordan Henderson. I feel like he'll bring quite a lot of athleticism to the midfield, which they've lacked for many a year now with that aging midfield of Fabinho and Henderson. I would feel like 50 million is a lot of money for the age, the player. I feel like they could go for something more experienced. They'll go down a different way than Lavia. For example, maybe looking at the likes of the way that Arsenal have gone potentially with Declan Rice, looking at that sort of style player, but obviously they haven't got the finances to do that. But that sort of example player would be a perfect player because he'd run from box to box, which is what they're looking for, rather than they've obviously signed Szoboszlai and then they've got him. I feel like he'll be the player that will be box to box, but I don't know whether you boys agree with me in terms of like, what Jurgen Klopp needs is a midfield that's got legs. They've lacked legs for many a year, and this Trent idea for me doesn't fix it. I don't know whether you agree, Ryan.
It looks like Klopp's trying to like fully revolutionise his midfielder. Because like what works so well for him, there wasn't that much creativity in it. It was like you had Fabinho, he just sat. Then you had Henderson, Wijnaldum, and they just run. If you're looking at individual quality like passes, they've gone up in that standards. McAllister and Szoboszlai are much better midfielders, but running wise, they're lacking that, and that's what Klopp's system always focused on, wasn't it? It was always on running, win the ball, we'll outrun you. Yeah, we may not have the quality, but we've got the players up front that'll do the business there. With this, he's completely changed. Basically, his philosophy. It's a completely different new Liverpool team entirely. I think Lavia's a very good player. He's very young. He's very inexperienced. 37 million, and that's been rejected. It will probably go towards 50 million for 18-year-old Southampton midfielder. I'm not sure if that's good business, but what other options are there in the market? Because they've all been taken up. Maybe Amrabat, but according to some sources, he's been rejected a couple of times and is favouring Manchester United, rightfully so. But it's all about what options. But it's probably the best option that they can take. But it's a massive risk for Liverpool to make this move. What do you reckon on that, Sam?
I'd agree with that. Last part, absolutely. It's a big risk. I'll say that. Obviously, I think we all know the quality that he has. We all saw him play for Southampton last year. Obviously, especially with it only being his first year in the Premier League. Because obviously he's a young lad. He's like, what, 18, 19? And obviously he's came from a big club in Man City. And I won't lie, from what I saw from him last year, yeah, he was probably the best player in that Southampton side that obviously finished rock bottom. But I mean, there's no doubt that the quality is there and it probably will be a fantastic signing for Liverpool. But I think one of the main things that I would say about it is the price tag. But obviously nowadays in this transfer market, there is obviously a lot of players going for a high amount of money each time. So that's what I would say personally.
Do you think there's also a difference from going from Southampton to Liverpool? Like, Southampton are not a massive club at the end of the day, are they? Like, you're taking a big leap. And say with these like massive clubs in England, you talk about United, Liverpool, like at Arsenal, etc. Players can get swallowed up in that. You see that with numerous United signs, with United signs over the past 10 years since Fergie's retired. That could happen with Lavia again, don't you think?
100%, yeah, it's a huge step up, to be honest. Like, for example, it happened with Calvin Phillips at Man City last year. Obviously, there's no doubt that Leeds are a big club, but they've been underperforming for a good amount of years now. Obviously, they've just got relegated back to the Championship. And obviously, when he moved to Man City, Leeds hadn't been back in the Premier League for very long. And obviously, maybe a big fish in a small pond at Leeds. He's obviously moved to City. He's had his injury problems. He's obviously got Rodri ahead of him, who is by far one of the best CDMs in the league. So obviously it's been tough on him. So I think that's just like the perfect example, really, of how tough it is to like adapt to move into such a big club from, well, not say like a small club, but I think you know what I'm grasping at.
Yeah.
I know, like, obviously Klopp's looking after ball runners and all that stuff, but is there not a feeling amongst that, like, Szoboszlai and McAllister to me are quite a similar player, which if you're going to get rid of Henderson and Fabinho, does that leave you a little bit short with just Lavia? Does that mean you go again? Or because I feel like Szoboszlai and McAllister they're quite similar in what they do. They are attacking midfielders. Like last year, Brighton had Caicedo who held and McAllister went forward. I don't know whether Josh agrees with me on that. Like, I just feel like they're both similar personalities, and it may mean that Liverpool have to dip into it again if they get rid of Fabinho. I don't know if you guys.
100%. Like McAllister and Szoboszlai are both mainly attacking players. Like if you watch Szoboszlai for Leipzig, he plays out on the wing. He's the set piece taker. A lot of attacks go through him, and that's exactly the same with McAllister. If you watched him for Argentina in the World Cup, a lot of attacks went through into like Alvarez and Messi, but also for Brighton, he was like the main spark, bit of attacking talent to go along with Mitoma, which got Brighton a lot of goals. But also want to go back to the step up as well. Like this signing to me reminds me of when Liverpool signed Wijnaldum. They bought him from Newcastle when they just went down, and Klopp developed him into a brilliant midfielder. I think this has potential to be another one of them if they do pay the price. But I do think they do need another defensive midfielder as well as Lavia, some a bit more experience, like a check the core. But you never know, really, do you?
Like Liverpool have done this before with, like, I'd say a perfect example of this. He's just gone out on loan. Is Fabio Carvalho. He went from a relegated Fulham team to being in the team at the beginning of this. Is it last season or was it the season before? He was in about the team, and then he's been out on loan, and then he's come out with comments saying Klopp's not spoken to him. Does that not give a worrying vibe for Lavia to go, oh, if I'm not the main man in this team, where am I going to be in like 2 years' time down the line? Like, don't get me wrong, he's 18, he's got loads of time to develop, but you do not want to go down that grasp hold of, oh, go to the big team now and then being not known for anything years to come. Don't know whether everyone agrees with me on that, but there's plenty. I feel like the Fabio Carvalho is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's one to watch, of course.
The next one,
to watch.
Yeah, the next one, like the next couple of transfers we've noticed. Obviously, you've had the likes of in the last couple of days, Harvey Barnes going to Newcastle and Saint Maximin heading out to Saudi. I don't even know if it's necessarily an upgrade, to be honest. Obviously, Harvey Barnes, there is a quality player there, but I feel like he's very hot and cold. When he's hot, he's absolutely a brilliant, outstanding winger. But when he's cold, he really struggles. Like in that Leicester team, don't get me wrong, to get 14 goals in a relegating team season, that's good stats to bring back. But when I've watched him before, once he shadows out of a game, he doesn't come back out, which with Saint Maximin, you knew every time he was on the ball, he was driving at that defender, which obviously he was injured quite a lot of the time. But Harvey Barnes, to me, doesn't value at £38 million. I feel like they played a lot more. I don't know whether you agree, Sam, but that's just me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I've always seen the potential with Harvey Barnes, and there's no denial that, he's a fantastic player, and I think maybe, like you said, 38 million is maybe, a bit too much, but I think that's what it's like nowadays in the transfer market. Obviously, you do have a lot of players going for a high amount of money. I mean, there's also plenty of other examples like that. But I mean, whenever I've seen Harvey Barnes play for Leicester, I've always been quite impressed. He's everything you'd want really in the winger. He knows where the back of the net is. He gets assists. He's direct. He's not afraid of running at fullbacks. I think it's quite sensible business by Newcastle, to be honest. As good as Saint Maximin is, he can also be quite frustrating to watch at times. Sometimes maybe he's more focused on, showing off his actual potential rather than, getting forward and helping the team. because obviously he didn't have the best goal scoring record at Newcastle, I don't think, in over 100 appearances or whatever it was. I think he had more assists than he did goals, which is obviously what you'd expect from a winger. But yeah, I'd definitely say it's an upgrade. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd say it's definitely an upgrade.
He's more of an Eddie Howe player as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
because
I'd say that. Yeah,
Eddie Howe, he loves his wingers where they run, they do all their running. They're more effective and more productive. Like say Maximin's, he's probably a better footballer, like technically, better dribbler, looks better on the eye test. But I think Harvey Barnes, he's gonna be much better for Newcastle in the long run. Also a bit younger as well. You can kind of see what he's trying to do with like the Anthony Gordon as well, but they could fall into a little bit of a trap here, Eddie Howe, if he keeps trying to sign these type of players where there's a bit of a ceiling on them, and there's not the more like the creative side from them that he's like missing. Yeah, like if he's going Anthony Gordon, then he's going Harvey Barnes on the left wing. Where's the creativity from it? It's just two direct wingers that are trying to cut in and score. They're too similar in type.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans saying as well that they're obviously when the Saudis took over, Mbappe, Neymar, that sort of discussion of player was there, but now they're like, it's a little bit of a shell shock to be signing. Don't get me wrong, Tonali, that's an unbelievable signing for me. That midfield becomes 10 times better. Bruno and Tonali in a midfield over Longstaff, that's an instant upgrade. But when you look at the other signings they're making, I think they're actually shrewd. They fit the team. It's not necessarily throwing money at it. Like, don't get me wrong, Harvey Barnes to me, he'll do well, but I don't think it's an upgrade. I think St. Maximin offers more for me, but I guess if you're going to get offered money for St. Maximin, you're going to take it with his injury record.
What you got to think, though, as well, is that Harvey Barnes, he's an England international. He's played for England. He has a bank full of Premier League experience as well. He's been playing at this top level for a few years. He's played in European football as well in the Conference League with Leicester. Like, he may be young, but he just brings so much experience. And like, I've watched Harvey Barnes since he was in the Championship at West Brom and load, and like, he can take on players, he can run at players, but he's also got a knack for goal scoring, which is what Newcastle needs. They need more goals. Because like, they were really defensively solid last season, but sometimes they struggle to score goals. And like, especially if you're playing week in Saturday, Tuesday, Champions League, you're going to need someone who can bring goals and pace and fitness. And that's what Harvey Barnes brings. Whereas I think like St. Maximin is a brilliant player, but he was lazy sometimes, and he had too much of an ego, too skillful. So it fits into more Eddie Howe's philosophy, more like of what he wants, which is hard-working players, a mix of good hard-working players, but then what the Newcastle owner wants is they're like star players as well to attract people like your Isaacs, your Guimares, your Tonalis, your Trippiers. So like they're building like a perfect blend of players to compete and be attractive.
Yeah, I don't know whether you boys agree, but I actually feel Newcastle, I think defensively, they're going to be short next year. I've got like with them playing Champions League football, they've not done that for 20 odd years now, probably longer than that. Got to have a look at my stats for that, but I feel like defensively, you go from a Botman to a Lascelles, and it's like that's not Champions League quality. You're going to get ripped to shreds if a Botman or a Shaw gets injured. Like, I feel like they need a strong backup to them too. Or, for example, if Trippier gets injured, then you're bringing in potentially Jacob Murphy in that area, or even Emil Kraft. And there again, it's not strong enough, I don't feel. But they may surprise us. They might surprise us and go again in the window. But I have to admit, having watched Newcastle versus Villa, Elliot Anderson is looking a very strong player. I watched him and he drove at Villa, and I was shocked, to be honest, because I watched him last season. He was quite a quiet style player, but I think he could be potentially another young English player that's going to come out at a top club. I don't know whether Ryan agrees or you've seen much of Elliot.
He looks like he will be a good player, and he just needs to find that starting point in that Newcastle midfield, because there is a role there with like him, Joel Linton. It's obviously gonna be Guimares and Tonali as your base too, but it's definitely a role because he's probably more of a 10. he can play as an 8, but he's definitely more of a 10, and he could fit that system if they're trying to play those like 2 DMs on a 10, and he could be their own Jacob Ramsey like at Villa, where he's burst into the team. Well, he's not local lad. He's from
where the eyes shot up then.
Your favourite player, but
so I mentioned Villa.
But he could be that similar type of player that burst into the team. He's got the quality that Newcastle midfield was kind of lacking last season, apart from Gomara's. So I think he could have possibly a breakout season this year.
Yeah, definitely. I share what your feelings towards it, Josh and Sam.
I think, well, like we said before, I think one thing that Newcastle will struggle with this year if they don't add more signings this summer is the squad depth, because obviously they're going to be playing so many more games this year. Obviously, they didn't have European football to contend with last year, so they were playing less fixtures. Obviously, they had the Carabao Cup run where they got to the final. But I think that's one thing that they are going to struggle with this year if they don't have more depth this summer. Because like we say, they do have a good back line there, but one injury and it could all fall apart. Like, you know, they've got Dan Burn playing at left back. I think that's still a bit suspect. I don't know what Newcastle fans will think about that, because obviously I don't watch them week in, week out. They'll know more than me. But I just think like one injury and it could all, you know, not go wrong, but they might have a bit of a weaker season, because obviously, like we say, we don't know how far they'll go with European football as well. Like, will they get out the group stages? Will they get to like the later rounds of the knockout stages? We just don't know really. So yeah, I think I will say that to one finally. Like, if they don't add squad depth, then yeah, I think they'll be in for a bit of a tougher year.
But building on from that, like, I do agree there, but you got to take into, like, with Newcastle being their first European tour, it's not just them who might struggle. Like Brighton, they're going on a European tour. Villa are going on a European tour. West Ham are going on a European tour. These 4 teams, maybe not West Ham, but we haven't had much European experience. Whereas like your Liverpools, your Tottenhams, even though they're not in it, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, your Man Cities, your Man United, they're in European football most seasons, aren't they? So they have the squad and the management to know how to compete with this. Whereas, but like your Brighton and your Villa, like, we've had to build a team for Europe. Like, we're bringing in like Pau Torres, Diaby, Tielemans for that squad depth in Europe if we're playing Sunday, Thursday. And that's what Newcastle needs to do as well. They need to effectively have a second team just in case it goes pear-shaped. Because like looking at Arsenal last season, using your example, like you just lost Saliba last season, and that was the end of your title charge, weren't it? Like you had Rob Holding at the back. Now you brought in like another centre back, Timber. Now you could be on a title charge again. So it just comes down to bringing in depth, but not just any depth, the right depth and the best quality to get you in the same position next season.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know what? The other thing that can bring with the unknown is for Villa, Brighton, Newcastle going into these European is they could be dark horses in all of these, because no one's predicting that they're going to, especially Newcastle, that they're going to do much in the Champions League this year, because I feel a lot of fans are going Newcastle. Okay, the Saudi build-up's there, but there's not that experience to go into these knockout games against Real Madrid or Barcelona or whoever. I think there could be plenty of shocks on. I'm going to move on to one final transfer, which will please Josh. I'm going to talk about Diaby, because I feel we need to talk about Diaby. So I'll let Josh take this one away.
Oh, honestly, this transfer window as a Villa fan, I've just been so buzzing for it. Like, it's the first transfer window I can sit back. I've seen a player join, and I'm like, wow. Like Yuri Tielemans to start with, free signing, that's brilliant business. Pau Torres, a brilliant European caliber centre back. And then just like Moussa Diaby, the link come out of nowhere. And then like 3 days later, there was a done deal. He's holding up a shirt in Washington DC next to on Everett. I'm just like, why we actually have a winger who's quick, strong, and he can actually take on players. We have lacked a winger with all them attributes for so long, and like it's just exciting that we're getting attacking players in. I think like we're actually going to give Ollie Watkins service, and we're actually going to play some good football. And I think he's going to make his debut tomorrow against Fulham, so I'll probably be staying up till about 2 a.m. again to watch that. Rip my eyes, but here we are. Got to do for the cause. But
I definitely believe that he's an upgrade on like the likes of Leon Bailey. Bailey for me has been so injury prone in his time with Villa, but obviously he's had his bright sparks. But I think Moussa Diaby is probably one of the best wingers in Europe at the minute.
Can I just say though, like, with this Diaby, like, I think it could help Leon Bailey as well. They were one of the best winging duos in the Bundesliga a few seasons back when they were playing together. They were unstoppable for Leverkusen. They've got into the Champions League. I don't know why they can't do the same here. I know the Premier League's a massive step up. And you've seen a lot of players come from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, be like, oh yeah, it hasn't really worked out like you have and stuff. But like with Villa now, with our players, we actually have a decent football manager who knows how to manage. Like we had a Scouts PE coach last season who had no clue what he's doing now. He's in Saudi Arabia losing all his pre-season games, and once he's made Coutinho and Henderson there, like now we've got one of the best managers in European football. Like it's just mad how much the season changes. But yeah, I'm just excited. It's an exciting time to be a Villa fan, and I really do hope we do kick on this season because our owners aren't here to mess around, and we've got the facilities, we've got the management, we've got the players, and we've got like the backroom staff now. So yeah, I hope we kick on.
I don't know about you, Ryan and Sam. I'm a little bit like wooey about going to Villa Park now.
I mean, we had this first game last season, and that was horrible. To be fair, we had no Bruno Fernandes, so if we had him, we probably would have won that about 3-0 because he owned your club. But it's really not a fun place to go to. It's like one of those proper old classic Premier League grounds where there's still no corners of it, which is actually a thing that I like. I know it's something that's been upgraded, but it brings back like old football, like heritage. But it's a proper like old Premier League stadium where you think like Villa Park, Goodison, and Highbury back in the day. It's terrifying. I hate playing there. I don't think we've won there in about 2-3 years.
I think what I think is that our whole end. That is the best part of our stadium. And because it's a single standing stand, there's no corners of it. It just gives me reminders when it's full, buzzing on a match day. The yellow wall in Dortmund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's basically like our whole. That's the whole end to me. I see that as our yellow wall. And I think once we're getting massive improvements to our atmosphere now with Project B6 and that, which I want to shout out. They're doing amazing for Villa Park's atmosphere. Like European nights, it's going to be intimidating. Everyone's saying, "Oh, these famous Anfield European nights," but European nights at Villa Park, that's going to be something different. And at St James's Park as well. Like these are old English clubs that are coming back to life, sleeping giants, and it's going to be good for English football.
And we'll pass it on to the relegation last 2 years in Sam.
Well, I hate playing Villa anyway. I won't lie. I how many times do I say to you that I hate playing Villa? Every time we play them, but they just beat us. Like they're just a bogey team for us. I know we don't do great much anymore anyway, but Villa just always seem to do the better of us. Like every time, basically, since they came back up, we haven't beat them for like 7 years, and that was the year they got relegated. But it's just, I don't know what it is. It's just
especially Emi Buendia as well. He just turns up against you. He's like to you what Bruno Fernandes is to us. He just turns up for that game.
And what Anthony Martial is to you as well.
There's a good many for us. Yeah, there's Danny Ings and that as well. Like look, the list goes on.
Let's let off the bullying on Sam. All right, I'm going to move it on, boys, because obviously we've got a time schedule to run on. But I'm going to talk about like our pre-seasons now. So obviously individually, yeah, of course you're excited to talk about that. So Arsenal fan, it was a good. It's been a bit of an interesting start, having to integrate obviously £105 million player into our squad, Timber, and then £105 million player. Shush.
What a struggle.
But we played Nuremberg where we drew 1-1, and then we've moved on to America where we've gone and played the MLS All-Stars, which they weren't very all-star because we beat them 5-0. And then, obviously the last Saturday losing to Ryan's team, Man United, it was it was a bit of a shush. It was a bit of a shock because they just looked way fitter, more up for it, and I hope it does give Arsenal kick up kick up the arse sort of thing to go, right, this is the standard we should be setting. Because United were all over us, obviously pre-season. At the end of the day, doesn't mean anything, but it does give a little bit of banter and right within the rivals when it comes to the season when we face each other. Is it 4th or 5th game into the season? You're at the Emirates, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's 5th. That's going to be a fun
one. Which obviously the Emirates has never been a good stomping ground for you. Well, it hasn't been for a long time since Fergie left. So hopefully we'll turn up for that one. But yeah, we've got.
Can I just ask
game. Hey.
Can I ask something like?
Yeah, go for it.
I watched some of these pre-season games. I'm like, where is Balogun? Like, there's been so much hype around him in this transfer window. Like, he was amazing. Like, it was amazing in French League last season. I was thinking, oh yeah, he's going to get some minutes for Arsenal. He could be a future Arsenal striker. Where is he? Where's these minutes? He's getting the minutes. Does Arteta not like him or something?
No, it's not necessarily that. It pains me to say it, but the shock of us spending 105 million and going, oh yeah, we've got this money. Obviously, at the other end, you've got to make ends meet. So the money's got to balance somewhere. And Arsenal want around £50 million for Balogun, which Inter Milan are sniffing round for. Which, yes, I think it's a lot of money for him. But if Inter are going to pay it, take him. £50 million at the end of the day, I feel now as a transfer market, that's what's the setting price these days. Because you look at the players, like, for example, we were talking about Harvey Barnes and how Newcastle, I feel, have overpaid for him. That's where we are in this transfer market. Like, I could
but he's been scoring a lower quality league, let's be honest. He's been doing it in the French league. With no disrespect if there's any French fans watching, but in comparison to a step up to Premier League and top half Premier League, like, you know the quality, like, that's why Harvey Barnes, I think that's worth the price. But for Balogun, 50 million. I know he's young,
I think there's a lot of doubt about him. Obviously, we saw him a couple of times during Arteta's second season, and then he went out on loan, and he struggled. Which I think the physical side of the game is a big struggle for him. Personally, he's not very big built, which obviously these days in the Premier League, you've got the likes of, for example, Pau Torres and your Rafael Varanes and your Tarkowskis. You're going to need to be physical in the Premier League now. And Balogun doesn't have that, which with Gabriel Jesus, before you all diss me, because I still like him as a player, and Ryan's got a thing about Gabriel Jesus.
He's a good player. He's not good.
You'll find out more and more as we get on more and more in weeks to come with the podcast that he'll diss him. But with Jesus, I feel like he can hold the ball up, and he's good at winning fouls off players that are, like, for example, Lissandro likes to go in for a tackle, and Jesus seems to be able to get the ball away from him just before he gets there. But yeah, it'll be an interesting time for Arsenal, because I definitely think there'll still be some incomings, but I'm not quite sure who at the minute. I'm kind of like, I've said to myself when I've looked at the squad, I've said we need to look at potentially another right winger just to cover Saka, because I feel like we haven't really got that cover. Like Trossard's there, but he plays all positions. Like that front line, apart from he played every position when he joined in January. He played the number 10, the false 9, the right and the left. So he's quite he is an Arteta player. He's very adaptive to what any game situation sort of thing. So I feel like we need a right winger just to help Saka, because Saka played every minute of every game in the Premier League last year, and eventually the body's going to give up. Like there's going to be a point where the body goes, I can't do this anymore. So he's going to need that cover. But yeah, it's exciting times for Arsenal fans, but there's definitely, I still think there's a lot to come in this window, and there's an exciting time ahead. We've got Barcelona on Thursday morning at like 3:30 in the morning, which unfortunately due to work I will not be watching. But the week after that we've got Monaco in the Emirates Cup, and then Manchester City in the Community Shield. So there's a lot of football coming up in the next couple of weeks, and then big day arrives, or the big weekend. But yeah, there's a lot of things to come for Arsenal fans. Ryan, don't know whether you want to take on the United view.
I was overjoyed with that performance that we displayed against Arsenal, because
I bet you were.
I really do hate losing against Arsenal, because then the day after I've got to deal with you, and I could not be having that.
Yeah, but you'd rather deal with me than anyone else.
True, fair enough. But at the end of the day, performance-wise, I was very happy with. I just want to put a little spotlight on Kyle Manu because he has started one game in like total, like for Manchester United in the Carabao Cup against, I think it was Charlton. I think it was Charlton in the Carabao Cup. Looked all right, but he was phenomenal. He just started straight in beside Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount, and he made Rice look average. He looked like the £105 million player that Rice was, but he just looked so composed on the ball, and I think he could be a breakout star this season. But I was very impressed with the performance from everyone. Really happy that Martinez is back from his injury. Doesn't look like he's missed a step at all. He's one of the best centre backs in the Premier League, and he's disrespected constantly by other fans because they do not understand football because of his height. But yeah, he's so good ball playing wise, and yeah, I'm glad we got the power line sorted. Onana's coming in, so I'm very happy.
So does with obviously the appearance of the young lad, is it Manu?
Kobbie Mainoo, yeah.
Do you feel that do you still need another midfielder, or are you going to stick with him? I've seen a lot about Amrabat, but I don't know if you know any more than I do.
Amrabat, apparently, like, we're close to agreeing, like, personal terms, but our main focus is clearly Hodgins at the minute because we kind of do need a striker because that's like the one thing that we're missing right now is like a number 9, hold the ball, big, physical, and can actually score goals. And his name isn't Wout Weghorst, which would be better. But yeah, that's clearly the main transfer priority. We need to get that sorted. We've got Mountain, so we've got our 8 sorted, but we do need some depth because apparently it looks like we're going to be selling Fred and McTominay. And if we sell both of them, we've got starting Bruno, Mount, Casemiro, then it's Eriksen, Mainoo, then like maybe one other youth. But we've already sold like the 2 other youth in like Savage and Zidane Iqbal. I think they were proved not to be good enough, even though they had a very good preseason last year. But if we have the opportunity, we need to get another body in there because one injury or another red card suspension for Casemiro, we haven't got a DM. Then that's a big problem. So I'd say we definitely do need another body there of someone that of quality that could just slot in if someone's like injury or just rotation wise, because we're going to have a lot of fixtures. It's clear that Erik ten Hag does not take any cups lightly. He wants to challenge on all fronts, as we've seen last season, winning one, getting to the final of the other, and getting to the quarters of the Europa League. It's clear that he wants to battle on all fronts and win every trophy possible. We're going to need bodies if we want to do that. So if we can get Amrabat, get him.
Would you take Sabitzer back? I know he's going Dortmund, but
no, not a chance.
But like, wouldn't he have been a good player for your team? Because he did show some bright spots at United.
I mean, he scored 3 goals. He was okay passing, but he was injured quite a bit as well. And physically, I don't think he's a Premier League player.
He didn't seem to have the legs for it, did he?
No, he didn't. I don't think he's a Bundesliga player at the end of the day. And he just joined Dortmund, so
yeah,
shows everything about his character, isn't it?
So how's the Aston Villa preparations going?
Oh yeah, we've been going well under Emery, so we've been getting the right players in. I think so. We're getting Torres, Tielemans, and Diaby. Like I've been on about, don't want to go long about them because I could go all day about them and how excited I am. But so it's been 2 draws so far. One against Warsaw, where we played a really young team, like you goalkeeper and that. Then our first very important game was against Newcastle the other night. We looked good. To be fair, our attacking play, it was free-flowing, solid football. I think Eddie Buendia, he just tore Newcastle to shreds. Left Tonali on his bum, just made him look like a flop. But he ain't going to be a flop tonight.
Yeah, we did enjoy the message we got in the group chat during that game.
It was a good game to watch. Like I was watching mainly from a neutral point, but more of a Villa thing because I think pre-season you can't take it seriously, can you? Unless there's a trophy involved.
Ryan. Funny enough, you can't take it seriously.
You can.
But
no, it's not that deep. Pre-season is not that deep. No.
It is what it's.
No one's bothered about the result in pre-season.
It's important.
Anyway.
Yeah. But what got me excited the most was seeing us play like some of our really young players, so like your Philogines, Aaron Ramsey, Jacob's brother, Amari Kellyman. These are such exciting talents we have, and just seeing them get minutes just makes it really positive to show their futures under Emery. Whereas before, they probably would get like 1 or 2 minutes or a cameo, then they'd just be shipped out on loan. But like Emery's going to integrate youth and star players in to build a team that's sustainable for the next 5-10 years, and it's just exciting, really. But I do have one concern, and that's a certain Swedish goalkeeper who can't even catch a cold by the name of Robin Olsen. I don't want him near my team. As much as I will support every player, that man gives me no confidence at all. And it looks like our defence have no confidence in him, as we got battered every time he was in goal. But also the fact that like we just need 1 or 2 more bodies in to perfect the team. But yeah, we've got Fulham tomorrow night, and then Brentford and on the weekend, and then a few other games. But it's going to be a good season for us. I'm really excited. So how do you think Everton's been getting on, Sam?
I mean, we've not played that many games so far. We've just played tonight against Bolton. It finished 0-0, and then we've had 2 games before that. We played in Switzerland where we won 2-1, and then we beat Wigan on Saturday. So obviously we're starting to get more games, and that we've had 2 signings in so far. We've had Ashley Young on a free, and we've had Dan Jura on loan, which I'm really happy about, to be honest. You know, take away what happened in January, I'm really happy with the signing. He's versatile. He can play anywhere on the front line, left, right, forward. I'm happy with that. But I do think we need a lot more additions to the side. I mean, I completely trust Sean Dyche. I feel like if we give him the full season, give him back in, I think we'll be okay. I think this season, more than anything, we just need to focus on staying up, maybe finishing mid-table, just add a bit of stability, because the last 2 seasons, they've been chaotic, to be honest, as everyone knows, but especially from me as an Evertonian, it's just been the nightmare from hell. I mean, say this time 2 years ago, I wouldn't have personally expected to have had 2 relegation battles back to back. And it's just, yeah, it was terrible both times. So honestly, if I was to be given right now a 12th place finish and to be confirmed safe with 10 games to go, I would take that happily right now.
Yeah, I do remember.
Ideally.
I do remember being sat in a pub with you after the Man City game and you being very stressed out.
Yeah, at the time we had 2 games left, obviously, but nothing will beat the stress of that Bournemouth game, to be honest. The final game of the season, I was there, obviously. My blood pressure, God knows what it must have been like. I just don't want another relegation battle this time.
Could I ask something about Everton?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, I think one of your standout players last year was Damari Gray, but then there's talk of his letting him go to either Palace or Fulham. Would you keep him or would you let him go?
If we brought in a decent replacement, I would let him go, personally. I don't think he's that good, personally, and obviously we can't really complain about him right now because obviously, we've not got the great squad. We're probably down there in terms of, quality in the league, and that's why we finished 16th and 17th the past 2 seasons. Thing is with Damari Gray, he's really, really frustrating to watch. If he had a brain, then he wouldn't be playing for us, quite personally. No disrespect to him whatsoever. There was a reason he only cost 1.5 million when we signed him. He got off to a fantastic start when we bought him, to be honest, when Benitez first brought him in, but he's never really kept up with that form. He scores a worldie, once every 20 games, but it's just, he doesn't offer enough for me personally. And I think if we were, obviously there's the rumours that he might be either going to Saudi Arabia or Crystal Palace, where it's being rumoured that he's going to go for over 10 million. I'd snatch your hand for that right now. I mean, because for a start, you're making profit. Like I say, we only spent 1.5 million on him. I don't think it'd be such a big loss if we were to sell him, especially if we brought in a solid replacement.
Perfect. I feel like there's a lot to come, I think, from Sean Dyche if he gets the right players in. Like, you look at that squad, you've got his former players and James Tarkowski, Keane, You've got very Sean Dyche. You've signed a very Sean Dyche player in Ashley Young.
Don't get me started on Michael Keane.
Obviously, you're after a striker, but you've lost out on Torre going to Atalanta, which obviously that's a little bit of a blow. But he was at the bottom end of La Liga, so maybe it's probably a good thing. Like maybe you could look at you've obviously lost out on Gyökeres, but that's definitely a profile of player that you'd look at because Gyökeres fired them in the Championship last year. You could probably dip into that, or even a lower league Premier League. There's enough in that Everton squad. Like, don't get me wrong, Mopé is nowhere near good enough for that Everton squad. Like, obviously, before you got him, he was brilliant for Brighton and Brentford previously. I don't know what's happened at Everton for him to, like, when we went to the Everton Newcastle game, he was booed when he come on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it shows how bad he has been or he's having at that football club at this moment in time.
He couldn't hit a barn door to save his life. Let's put it that way. I've watched him for a year now, and funnily enough, before we signed him, I actually didn't think he was that bad. I wasn't against signing him at all, especially how well we still are now. But at the time, we were desperate for a striker. Calvert-Lewin was injured. I didn't think he was going to be that bad of a signing. Obviously, he got off to a decent start as well. He got his one goal of the season in like his second game, and funnily enough, it was a great goal. And he just, don't get me wrong, there wasn't much attacking quality in that side at all last year, but he just didn't help himself at all. The amount of chances he missed, it was just. I think it's just. I don't really know where to start with Mopé, to be honest. I think obviously he's played a lot of pre-season so far this year as well, and it's just. Don't get me wrong, it's only pre-season. You can't think too much into it, but he just looks the same old, and just. That's one thing that does worry me if we don't get another striker in, because I don't think we can rely on Calvert-Lewin. He can't keep himself fit. Nothing against him personally, but just you can't rely on a number 9 who plays about 10, 15 games a season and scores about 3 times. You can't do that. Otherwise, eventually, luck is going to catch up with you, and you probably are going to get relegated. Which, for me, that's one thing that we need to address. Like first thing after signing Danjuma. I'd love to sign Nonto as well, but we need a striker desperately, and that's one thing that we need to address before our first game against Fulham. So we've just got over 2 weeks to sort it, and fingers crossed, really.
The only thing Mopé's good at doing is winding up Arsenal players, apparently.
Yeah, he only turns up against Arsenal. That's it.
Anyway, I think it's time we moved on from all our specific clubs. Obviously, we've spoken about them, but I think it's time now. We're going to move on to a feature that we've got. So we're going to go from what we feel the best transfers have been. So our top 5. So each of us have picked 5 players. We don't know who each other's picked, but we'll see if we match them up and see if we're any similar. So I'm going to go with my number 1 first. I'm going to go with Alexis McAllister to Liverpool. I don't think it was that expensive, to be honest, for the quality of player. I think he'll bring a lot to that midfield, and obviously you've got the likes of Jude Bellingham, who's gone for 115 million, Declan Rice 105. For him to go for in the 40 million mark, I don't think it's a lot of money. I think it's
that's pennies for in today's market. That is pennies.
And he'll bring what Klopp needs, a driving force in that midfield to give the support to Salah, Diaz, Nunes. It's going to be. I think it's going to be an interesting time for Liverpool this year. I can see him going forward, but I still worry at that centre back position. Like Van Dijk hasn't been the player that we've known for 2.5 years since he got injured against Everton, which I can see Sam smiling about. But I also don't think Konate is anything to shout about. But that's just me personally. I don't know whether you boys agree with me on that one.
That's mental. Konate is probably like Saliba. Konate's similar to that. He's not. He's not modern centre back.
Saliba's
Konate starts for France over Saliba. That has to say something.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
he's
when Upamecano's starting over Saliba, that says something about the manager, doesn't it?
Fair point.
Upamecano's a quality centre back, though.
Well, not from what I saw in the Champions League, mate.
Did you watch
Maguire?
Physical, fast, reads the game very well. He's a good ball playing centre back. Every box he ticks every single one. Good in the air as well.
Okay. Who did you go with as your number one, Mr. Ryan Millington?
It's quite clear. And Nana to Manchester United. I had to watch that season.
Here we go.
I was in the pub with you when we were watching West Ham versus Manchester United.
Oh, the joy! What a great day that was.
And the ball just went right through his hand like that, and that was the. I've always been a big David De Gea.
Hang on.
I loved him.
You finished third, mate. Cry me a river.
No. But if we had a competent goalkeeper who could do things that goalkeepers do, like pass the ball to the centre back with no problem, catch the ball in the air when crosses come, sweeps, speaks to his centre backs, we'd be quality, and he does all of those things. In the Champions League final, he was insane.
I'm going to say straight away is I still feel that United fairly untreated him.
To be honest, I do agree with you at that point because he should have got he should have said goodbye to the fans, but there was some contract because I think after the FA Cup final, Ten Hag was like, yeah, no. You could literally see, 13 seconds, and the second one he definitely should have saved. I
can honestly say,
Don't do anything for the first goal.
No keeper in the world would have saved that first one.
Yeah, but the second one.
No chance.
Come on, the second one.
Of course you would, Dov. Josh, who was yours?
Well, it's who it's going to be. It's going to be my little winger, Moussa Diaby. He's just amazing. Like that song can always be so much. But back to the point. He's just everything Villa needs. He's an Unai Emery. He's worked with Emery before at PSG, so he knows the player. He's brought him through. It's just the perfect fit for Aston Villa, and it's just going to be very exciting to have depth on the wing, have pace on the wing, and just have creativity as well. It's just exciting to see him play, and it's a statement signing as well. It means that Aston Villa are not here to mess around. We're here to keep going up and compete, and we could be competing for the top 4 regularly soon. We could be a threat.
Fair enough. Sam.
I've gone with Arnaut Danjuma for number 1. I think simply just because, I just think it's the perfect fit for us for what we need right now. Just like I said before, we're crying out for goals. Most importantly, and I think he can help with that. He's versatile, like I say. He can play on the left, he can play on the right, he can play centrally. So I think it's just the perfect fit. Obviously, we missed out in January, which was obviously disappointing. But I just think when you just get a signing and it just feels right. I've got that with Danjuma. It just feels like, he's going to come in, he's going to walk straight into the starting 11, and he's going to make an impact from the off. Come back to me if I'm completely wrong in a few months' time, but it just feels like he's going to make an instant impact, like I say. And
there's just one thing I want to say about Danjuma. We need to see all this media they're recording with him in January. They need to release it just for jokes.
I really want to see it, yeah.
I'd also like to ask
you, cool.
Do you hold any grudge against him for what he did in January?
Definitely not, no. Like I said, even before we signed him this time, I said he'd walk straight into the side. We're in no position to be holding any grudges against him. Like I say, I feel like he's going to make an instant impact. So, that's all in the past. I hold no grudge against him whatsoever.
Fair enough. Right, I'm going to speed the process up. So I'm actually going to go and give my 4, but I'll give my short reasonings because I thought the number 1, you give the exact reason why you think he's going to. I'm just going to give the rest of mine. I'm going to give just short reasonings as to why, and then I'll move it on to Ryan, Josh, and then Sam. So I've obviously gone for my £105 million midfielder, Declan Rice. I think he improves our team astronomically from last year. Don't say anything, Ryan. I know he didn't really show up on Saturday, but it's pre-season. But I feel he's going to be an Arsenal captain in the next 2 to 3 years. I feel like he's a leader in the dressing room. I can see your faces, but I can tell you I believe this. He's just come from West Ham, which he's got a winning mentality now, having won a trophy. And I feel like this year we're going to push on. I feel like we could go for the FA Cup, League Cup, or potentially the Premier League, but I doubt it because there's a little blue side of Manchester that seems to be having the joys of that lately. But yeah, I think he's a really good signing, and there's plenty to come from a 24-year-old Declan Rice. My next one's João Pedro going from Watford to Brighton. I feel that's a very shrewd signing from them. He was brilliant he's been brilliant for Watford throughout. We saw a glimpse of him in the Premier League and the Championship, and he came on Saturday night, I believe. Was it Saturday night or Sunday night? Sunday night, I believe, against Chelsea, and he scored in that game on his debut. Very bright, very direct, very young Brazilian player who's not afraid of taking on the defender. This will please Josh. I've got Pau Torres as my fourth. Strong, experienced European. He'll bring a lot to that defence. I think he'll actually push Konza out, and I think it'll be a back two of Mings and Torres. Obviously, I see Carlos getting in there somewhere, but I'm not again. I think until he gets to his full form, I don't know whether Josh agrees with me on this. He won't get in that team ahead of Mings. I think there's a lot of.
Don't forget though, he's got these centre backs because we're going to rotate him for the amount of games we're going to play. We're going to go deep.
Yeah,
it's a rotation thing, depth and quality, but I do
Would your Premier League 2 be Torres and Mings?
I'll probably say yeah, but maybe Torres and Konza as well. But it's hard to tell. I just think I need to see more of each centre back and what the pairings are going to be like.
Yeah, there's definitely been an upbringing in
which is what 3 seasons for.
Yeah, exactly. And Villa have spent again shrewdly. Like I feel like a lot of Premier League teams this year. Obviously, you've got the likes of Mr. Todd Bowley who likes to throw money at anything that moves. But I feel like every Premier League club has actually shopped quite smartly this year. I don't feel like there's been a Premier League club that's gone and just thrown money at it. Like obviously United needed a midfielder and a goalkeeper, Onana and Mount, and then Arsenal needed a midfielder and a centre back, and they've gone and got Rice and Timber. Villa needed a new centre back and a winger, Diaby and Torres, and then Everton have gone and strengthened the attacking roles of with Danjuma and then Ashley Young at left back, which I do believe you needed one of them anyway. Yeah, Mikalenko was not anything to shout about.
Yeah, he's still not something to shout about either. Just the bloke can't defend, the bloke can't go forward. What does he do? Basically, just.
And then for my fifth and final one, I've gone for Justin Kluivert, who signed from Roma to Bournemouth because I feel he's a very clever signing. He'll bring a lot to the Cherries. I feel like he's a very direct attacking player, and he's going to give the support to the likes of Dominic Solanke, Kiefer Moore, and going forward next year, I actually think Bournemouth will. Like, obviously, they're an exciting team. Like, no one knows what's going to come this year from Bournemouth, obviously, with the new manager coming in, few new faces. But I feel like they had a really good season last year. I felt sorry for Gary O'Neill. I felt it was a very poor decision from them. But business is business, as they say. And if there's someone not clicking with what the owner wants, then they're going to make a decision, as they say. But, yeah, there's a lot of promising times ahead for the Cherries, I think. But yeah, they're my 5. So yeah, moving on. Ryan, what's yours?
Michael B. Jordan was ruthless indeed. Right. So first we've got James Maddison, the Spurs, because over the years watching Spurs, their midfield has been horrible ever since Moussa Dembele left, and it was clear that they needed a 10, someone with a little bit of spark of creativity. I think James Maddison brings that. He brings goals, brings assists. 2 things that have been very lacking from that Spurs midfield for a very long time. And now they can combine that. And they've got a competent midfield, add Bentancur in there. And then you could put Højbjerg or Bissouma if he's going to kick on this year. Because we thought that would have been a very good signing. I haven't really seen too much of him on the good side, though. And then Kovacic to say, I've always rated Kovacic. I think there's been a couple years now that he's been top 3 8 midfielders in the league comfortably. Just the way is touch. It's just all the little things Kovacic does amazing. I don't think he'll replace Gundogan exactly because Gundogan's one of the best midfielders in the world, but I think he'll be a competent replacement, and then he'll let the other players go on and let them push on as well. So I think that's a very good signing. Then I've went Harvey Barnes to Newcastle because when you're looking at the attack on the wings, apart from Almiron's little mad stint where he went on a mental goal scoring run, they're not really getting goals from these wide positions. Like St. Maximin, obviously very good on the eye, very good dribbling stats or whatever. I think it's like 7.9. Harvey Barnes has a lot less dribbling stats, but when he dribbles, he beats his man. And he's got a much better goal scoring as well, which is the main thing that they were lacking. I think that's a very good signing. And a bit of the under radar one here, Traore to Bournemouth. I think this is going to be a quality signing from Sassuolo. And now that they've added them 2 players of quality in there with Clivert as well, I think Bournemouth can comfortably get maybe a 15th place finish here. And I think they'll go on leaps and bounds from what he did last season and really improve. I think that's very smart business from them because last season he had a couple injury issues. I only played about 10 games, but season before getting like 7 goals, 4 assists. And he's only 23 years of age. I think it's a quality signing.
Can I just say about Bournemouth, like the players they're getting in, it's like they're very exciting, but they're very young as well, and like it's quite a completely new Bournemouth. Like, I understand about the Gary O'Neill, it was wrong that he got sacked in an unfair manner, but what we've got to think is these new owners, they came in the middle of the season, and they kept O'Neill in to keep stability, and they backed him, and he done the job. But now they want to go in a new direction, push them up the league. Like these Bournemouth owners, they want ambition, they want success for the club. They want to be finishing top half, competing for the top half. So these signings, they're going to be quite a team to watch next season, I think.
Definitely going forward, I feel like they're definitely going to be a dangerous team next season. Josh, moving on to yours.
Oh, yes. So my first signing is, but my first player that I think is going to be really exciting is Nicholas Jackson from Chelsea, who signed from Villarreal. I think it's around 35 million euros, but he was linked with a lot of teams in January, including Villa. He's pacey, he's quick, he can score goals. He has a good bit of skill as well. And I watched him in the Chelsea game against Brighton in pre-season, and he instantly had a connection with Mudryk. And I think them two under Pochettino, who's a really good manager, will be able to click and play really well, good football, and get a lot of goals for Chelsea. So I do think we'll see a bit of a different Chelsea next season. Hopefully a team with a bit more stability going forward, instead of stacking managers, bringing loads of players in. They're going to trim down the squad and build from there. They might not get European football again, I don't think, but they'll be pushing around it.
He reminds me of young
second sign.
No, he does. Little touches, he does. You'll see.
Second one, I'm going to go for Forest, who today announced their signing of Ante Elanga from Man United. I think Forest are another team to watch. I know Ryan's smiling because he loves Ante Elanga. I know Sam doesn't want Ante Elanga at Edison, so he'll be relieved. But I think Elanga, the main problem at Man United is he never got a good, consistent run of games. He was either on the bench starting. Let's be honest, he was injured most of the time. I mean,
he was just horrendous.
30 games last season.
He didn't start them all, did he?
Season before, he played 30 games. He was the star boy.
You called him that.
Yeah,
but most of them were probably on 20-minute appearances off the bench.
No, but
let's be honest,
consistent games because Rashford was horrible that season. He was playing a lot of football. So.
You was
the whole team was horrible that season.
Yeah, but he was playing a lot.
Yeah, but can I just say though, back to my point, he's going to go to a team where he's going to be one of the main men. Yeah, he's going to Forest. He's going to be under Steve Cooper, is probably an underrated manager. He's going to be able to work. Steve Cooper's talent is working with young players. He's going to be working with Alangas. He's up front with Abioni. I don't know how you say his name. Awonyi, Gibbs White, Alanga. That's a good front three. That is a good front three to push your mid-table.
Can't forget about Brennan Johnson as well.
And Brennan Johnson, if he stays, that front four, that's quality. That is a top quality front four that can get you goals. So Forest and Alanga, that's a good one to watch next season. Burnley signing of Trafford, the under-21 goalkeeper for England, who saved that penalty in the final. That's a brilliant signing. Yep, but that is a very good, shrewd signing. City have got a buyback clause. It's kind of ambitious, but it's good to have good goalkeepers and good quality goalkeepers in your team, and especially young ones as well. And then The final one, I'm going to say Dominic Szoboszlai from Liverpool. Like that story when it just come out of nowhere. I think it all happened in a day, him being signed or overnight. Like I think he got announced the night before. Then as soon as you know it, Liverpool announced it in the morning or the afternoon. Like he will bring such a dynamic style to Liverpool, and he can play all over the pitch. He can play midfield, winger, and he's going to add some more set pieces as well, which is good for the team because I think they were struggling a lot with set pieces last season, especially from corners. They weren't scoring much. With Szoboszlai, he can put more accurate balls in as well. So it's quite a big signing from Liverpool, and it's quite an exciting one as well.
And finally, Sam.
My first one, I'm going with Christopher Nkunku to Chelsea. I just feel like it's quite ambitious from Chelsea for once. Obviously, so let's say like the past year or so since Todd Bowley came in, they've just been throwing money at players randomly, just not really having much thinking behind it. I feel like this is sensible business from Chelsea. I've obviously seen a bit of him the other night against Brighton in the pre-season tournament in America, and yeah, I liked what I saw from him. I've obviously seen him play a bit for RB Leipzig as well over the past few years in the Bundesliga and the Champions League. He's quite an exciting young player, and I feel like he'll adapt to the Premier League quite quickly. Obviously, he's got a great manager, Pochettino. He's a good man manager. He always seems to have quite a good relationship with his players. As seeing when he was at Tottenham, all the players, they loved him, and I just feel like he's going to kick on at Chelsea now. He's going to go to that next level. And my next one, I'm going with Alexis McAllister to Liverpool. I hate to say it, but it's a shrewd bit of business from them. Obviously, he's got a great amount of experience now. He's had a fantastic season at Brighton last year. I think he was one of the top goal scorers. Obviously, he's also now got a World Cup medal. He played a huge part in Argentina winning it in Qatar. And like we said before as well, they've got him for pennies really in the market nowadays. I think it was about around 35 million euros. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I feel like, as I hate to say it, because obviously I'm an Everton fan, I feel like Liverpool have needed this kind of player for say last season, and that we could tell the legs were going in the midfield. That was where they struggled the most last year, I'd say. And I just feel like it's a sensible bit of business from them. I feel like for the next few years he's going to be a big game player for them, and I just feel like he's going to adapt quite quickly to Klopp style of play. And I hate to say it, I just feel like he's going to hit from the off there really. I don't know about you boys.
Yeah, definitely a player to be watching and admiring, I think, because he's going to, if he plays as well as he did at Brighton, then he's going to be a dangerous player for Liverpool.
Absolutely, yeah. And my next one, I have gone with Jurrien Timber to Arsenal. Again, I think it's very sensible business by Arsenal. Obviously, very young player. I think he's played for a good few years now at Ajax, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. And
yeah, he was
again,
captain.
Yeah, there we go. And like I say, again, he's another player who's quite versatile. He can play right back, he can play centre back. So, with, hopefully not for Arsenal's sake, if they do have injuries come this season, he can slot in at either centre back or right back. I feel like again, he's a young lad. He's obviously going to be hungry, and I just feel like where Arsenal want to be in the next few years, I feel like it's the kind of signing that they need to be making. Really, what would you think, boys?
I think he's going to be very important because, again, if you lose Saliba or Gabriel, I cannot go another end of the season with Holding because, as proven, he's nowhere near good enough. He scares the crap out of me whenever he gets run at. Like Haaland against him, it was like I may as well have not had anyone there, to be honest. But yeah, it's definitely a very good signing, but I still think we actually need a centre-back, another one. I actually think you need a young one and get Holding out of the club. Get Holding out.
Kiwior.
Yeah, but I suppose, yeah, we've got Kiwior, we've got White, you've got players.
You can't write off Kirill. You signed him in January.
He's a bit
still
lightweight,
young, like,
though, isn't he?
It's too early to think. I think, yeah.
I
you
still say
need time to adapt.
Nah, but
I still
he's
say
lightweight.
to this time it was a foul on him against Brighton. Not that it would have made much of a difference, but I'm still saying it was.
Did he lose that game? What was it? 2-3 now?
3-0, yeah.
4-0, wasn't it?
It was when we were in the pub after the
and then we left before it finished. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I really didn't want to sit and watch anymore.
We missed the third goal.
But yeah, again, I feel Timber's going to be a very important player. He played at right back on Saturday, but that won't be his natural position. White will have that position again this year, and then once he's back to full fitness, Zinchenko will be on the left. So yeah, it's good competition. Like I would, well, for my first team of the season will obviously be Saliba and Gabriel's a back two, but he's definitely going to be knocking at the door.
Is he going to have a Sky Sports feature on his site as well, like Martinez does?
Right,
moving on.
Hang on. Didn't ask you.
Moving on anyway. The final one, I've gone with Yuri Tielemans to Villa. I feel like it's just really, really sensible business once again. Obviously, it's a free signing as well. Obviously, we've seen the talent that he's had at Leicester for years now. Maybe he did down tools come last season for Leicester, obviously when they were in a relegation battle. I know Leicester fans probably aren't too pleased with him, but I've seen him play live a few times now since he's been in the Premier League, and just every time I've been impressed by him. I'd love to have someone like him in my midfield, let's put it that way. I obviously saw him score that the worldie last year at Goodison when they beat us 2-0 right before half time as well. So he didn't make me happy there. But again, I feel like obviously it hasn't cost Villa anything either. It's a free transfer. And for where Villa want to be, I feel like that's a fantastic signing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Definitely. Brilliant, boys. But yeah, we're going to move on. We're going to move on now to where do you want to go next, Josh? What do you reckon? I'll let you take.
Shall we go to like who we think are going to be like the dark horses team-wise, and like a team to watch next season in the Premier League? Because let's be honest, there's so many teams that are investing so sensibly. Like it's going to be the hardest league, or the hardest competition next year. Like everyone's playing for something, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
There's maybe one or two teams. I'm not going to mention them out of respect, but that aren't really as ambitious. But the rest of them are all just going heavy at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to start, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Bournemouth. I think the signings that they've made. I think Bournemouth will be the dark horse this year. Cliver, Traore, like I've said, I think they're two quality signings. And if they may need a goalkeeper. That's probably the only position that they'd probably need to just sort that out. But I think
signing one, I think.
Yeah, they're signing one from one from Inter, some Romanian lad. Yeah,
signing on loan. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Then I think
Carvalho's heading to Leeds.
Okay. And if they sort that out, I think they could get a comfortable mid-table finisher, because like they've already got a bit of quality, and like in Solanke and the centre back whose name escapes me, who was amazing last season.
Senesi.
Yeah, him.
Senesi, yeah.
Quality centre back. So if they sort all their business out there, I think they can comfortably get a mid-table finish this season.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay, Bournemouth.
Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Sam?
Well, I was actually going to say Bournemouth myself, but I'll switch it up a bit. I'm going to go with Brentford. Obviously, I feel like it might be a bit of an unpopular one, because obviously they're going to go a lot of the season without Ivan Toney, and obviously that could be quite a big miss for them. But I just feel like Thomas Frank is one of the most underrated managers in the Premier League. I feel like he doesn't really get much attention for the job that he's actually doing there. Because I've said a few times, no disrespect to any Brentford fans who might be watching this, but I actually don't believe that they have the best squad on paper. I actually don't think, like, if you looked at that squad on paper, I don't think you would say there's much quality in that side, or at least Premier League quality. And I feel like, obviously, the third year in the Premier League now, and the past 2 years they finished quite comfortably. I think last year they finished ninth, which is obviously fantastic for them, considering they've only been back in the Premier League for 2 years now. And I feel like most of their success is down to the manager. And he's fantastic at what he does. He seems like he's a good manager. He seems to have a good relationship with his players. He has a good relationship with the fan base, and I just feel like if they ever do seem to lose Thomas Frank, then they would kind of spiral a bit. So I do feel like even though Ivan Toney could be quite a big miss, because obviously he's suspended until January, I do feel like Brentford. I do feel like Brentford could be someone to look out for this year. Maybe push for that Conference League spot. Obviously, they were in and around that last year. I think they were just beaten into it by Aston Villa. I think they were just beaten into it by them on the final day. And obviously, there's also the chance that they could lose David Raya. That would be quite a big loss for them. But I believe they've also signed a goalkeeper, Mark Flecken. So obviously, they're prepared for that if, God forbid, for them, they do lose David Raya.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd go with Brentford. I feel like, obviously, they're not going to be in a relegation battle. I think we all know that. I think we know that they're not too good to go down, but I just can't see them being anywhere near the bottom half. So yeah, I'd go with Brentford.
Fair enough. I'm going to go, you are all going to doubt me, but I'm going to prove you wrong. I reckon Luton are going to be dark horses.
God, it's not this again.
Luton?
Right. Hear me out.
Their star signing is Keith Chong.
No.
Yeah.
It's not about the signings. It's about how difficult that ground is going to go to. You're going to...
That's going to be horrible to go to.
Every
We'll
team,
post about that.
Yeah. Every team's going to find it difficult to go to that ground. And I went there for the Luton-Sunderland playoff game. And I tell you what, when the fans are on top of you, as Ahmad Diallo found out when he got pushed, they are on top of you. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, like, there's a lot. Do you know what? Luton are going to be. They're going to be either down. They're going to be below or above the line. Like there's no. I don't see them finishing above mid, like anywhere in mid-table. I think it'll be 16th, 17th, 18th. I don't see them in the mid-table area. But I think all it is about this year is consolidating the position. Like obviously you've not seen Luton Town in there for years, and clubs are going to find it difficult going to this the very old-fashioned ground where you have to.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Here's one thing. You said 18th.
Yeah.
They'd be relegated if you finished 18th.
No, I think they're going to finish in. I believe it's either going to be it's a difficult one. I don't see. I see them finishing 16th, 17th, or 18th. I don't see them finishing above any of those three positions. Like, I think there's going to be three worse teams than them. Funny enough.
Yeah.
But I don't. I hope they stay up because I think they're a very historic club that deserves to have its chance.
Yeah, I have nothing against Luton.
But like, Haaland's going to find it hard walking through someone's house to the dressing room.
No, but the thing with Luton, look at their squads. How many Premier League players are in their squad?
Marvellous Nakamba, that's all that matters.
None.
That's the problem that they're going to have.
A Premier League player, though.
Yeah, but it's not all about that because you have.
It is.
Because it's not though, because you've had Brentford who have come up and they've had Championship players still in their squad.
Yeah, but they've had players that went on and pushed on. Who for that Luton team can push on?
I'm telling you.
One thing that I will say about Luton is they've got a very good manager though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rob Edwards is a very good manager.
I genuinely think Luton are gonna have a hard time this year, but I think at home their home form is gonna be what saves them if they stay up.
Mm-hmm. They're going to be like Forest last year, but they're going to be more sensible. Like Forest I know they needed
money at it.
They've signed so many, they're through money, but with Luton, making their loans permanent. They've got a good manager who's got a good side play. They're keeping the core of the squad together. It's what you need, really. Add a bit of quality, goals. Yeah, you should be fine.
You've got two strikers that are not going to be very nice to play against, Adebayo and Morris, because they both bring height and pace to the back line. So they're going to play, realistically, Luton have always played a high line. so you're going to have runners in behind. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm very excited to watch Luton as a like not living far, having used to live not far from the ground. It's very exciting to see them where they are now, and yeah, hopeful that Rob Edwards can actually keep them up.
I think that Amari Bell will be a good player for the
Yeah, definitely.
Right back. He's brilliant.
He plays both. He can play either centre back or left, right back.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all very exciting times. But yeah, I think we're going to call the end of this now. I think
you've skipped me. You forgot my prediction.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr.
Oh, no, it's fine.
No. Talk about your underdogs. Come on.
All right. So I was going to say Villa, but I don't want to be biased. But I'm going to go for Nottingham Forest to be my team to watch, because I think the signings they've made so far are smart, and the players have been linked with us smart signings. I think they've learned a lot of lessons from the last window. Like, I know they needed to get a lot of players because they had a small squad, but they've stayed up. They've got the money to add quality. That's what they need to do. They need to add quality, not quantity, quality. Players that will keep them up and keep them around mid-table. And they need to just build a team around Gibbs White and Johnson. Right? If they can do that, the addition of Alanga is one of them. Awini? I can't even say his name. You know, that striker. Awani, that's it. We used to call it Awioni, but here we are. But Awani, that front line, it's such a good, underrated front line that can get you mid-table. And with these teams like Forest, if they get their wins against the teams around them, no one's expecting them to go and beat up the teams in Europe. If they get the wins around them, their home form as well. They're brilliant at home. The crowd's brilliant at home. Big club, big fans. I think they can just kick on next season and push up the table and maybe try and compete for top half.
I think one thing to say about Forest as well is, I think so far this summer they've been more sensible with the recruitment. They're not making as many signings as they were, say, last summer. I think they've only made 2 so far. Obviously, they've signed Alanga, and I can't remember the other one. Does anyone remember the other one?
What, for Forest?
Yeah. I think he was a midfielder on a free. I think he played for Fulham before. But yeah,
Oliena.
That's it, Oliena. It was a free transfer, which is...
That's it, Oliena. But like I say, they seem to have learned the lesson a bit, maybe. So yeah, I think that's a first shout. Absolutely.
Lots of things to be excited about ahead of this new season, I believe, boys. Like we've all got something. I feel like this year's the first time where we can all say that we're excited for a new season. Like sometimes we don't sign a player for weeks on end. Like you get close to the season, there's not been a player come in. You're just like,
well, I'm still nervous for it.
It's exciting across the board, like not just the Premier League.
Like
European football, that's going to be fun, and even like lower league football, Championship, that's going to be a different game next season. League One, League Two, National League. It's just really fun to watch football this year.
Yeah,
and I hope we can just bring it to all of you guys as well, just to share it with all you.
Yeah, we can't. As a group, we've created this page because we want to share every exciting, pain-shaking moment as a football fan that we go through each and every day of our lives. Because football is life, as Ted Lasso would say.
Danny Rojas. Pick up Danny Rojas.
But yeah, there's a lot to come, and we're going to keep throwing that content out to you guys, and that's what we want. And going forward, this is going to be we're going to try our best to get this out as a weekly thing, but we will just do our utmost to update content, give you content for you guys, watch alongs, podcasts, TikToks, all that stuff, and we're just going to keep posting because we just enjoy it as a group, and that's all it's about. So yeah, if that's everything done, I'm happy to say that's the end of our first podcast, guys.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think I'm happy to leave it there. Yeah,
it's been a pleasure, boys, and we'll see you next week, guys.
Just want to say to everyone watching, just like the video, share it with your friends, hit the subscribe button. We'll have our social medias down below as well as a little link or like a little picture. Just follow us all on there. We'll try and keep you up to date as much as we can. We're all going to run it. We're all going to put our opinions on, especially like when it comes close to the season. Just come in, get involved. It's a friendly space for everyone. Just come and enjoy yourself. It's going to be a good year.
Exactly. And we're going to have some, we're hoping to find some local media. So when we all move back to our university together, get some local interviews and stuff like that, just to give you guys a different context on like lower league football with Chester FC and things like that. Just give you a little bit more of an insight on what we see every day, living in small town and villages and not in the big cities. Perfect. Cheers, guys. And yeah, we'll see you next week.